Good evening, everyone. I mentioned the other day that the Liberals last week said it's time to change the channel. We've got to get on with the business of finding white supremacists and alt-right activists or something like that. That's what they're studying next. Randy Boissonnault, I think that's how you say his name, Boissonnault. Anyway, it doesn't matter, is very adamant that it's time to move on. Time to get to the business that Canadians expect us to do. And when I was reporting on this earlier today and yesterday, I had heard that before, and I mentioned last week, and I asked my friend, hey, can you find that link? I'm sure that somebody said exactly these same words before. So here is from March 19th. It's time to turn it. We're done with this SNC Lavalin investigation. We're moving on, and you're moving on too, Canada, because we're the Justice Committee, and that's what we told you is going to happen. We said it, and so that's going to happen. That was on March 19th. Okay, we're going to listen to a full 2 minutes, and then I'm going to show you what they said today, because it's the same.
So what happened today at committee was very straightforward. As you saw in our letter, we have had 5 weeks of testimony. We've heard from 10 witnesses. We have 13 hours of testimony. We've asked over 600 questions. Canadians wanted us to get into this issue, to understand what took place, and we have heard from many of the key players in this matter. We heard from federal public servants, we heard from academics, and we heard from key individuals in the matter. And it's time now for the Justice Committee to do its work and get back to, return to the work of the Justice Committee.
Well, we haven't heard from clear.
So I want to just stop there. That's the first time he's trying to change the channel, and the reporter doesn't let. I don't know who's asking the question, but the reporter says, no, buddy, you're answering a question. But he was trying to say, we're moving on. That's okay. Next question. We're not going to deal with SNC Lavalin anymore. We've heard everything, and Canadians wanted to hear us talk about, and they're satisfied, and we're satisfied, and we're moving on. That was the first time. Okay, he's going to keep going.
Key players like Katie Telford, Matthew Bouchard, Nelda Marks, who Ms. Wilson-Raybould said put pressure on her. In fact, Telford said, let's dispense with legal niceties, and Mr. Bouchard, according to her, said, look, we've got an election here. We've got to worry about election. Let's give the SNC Lavalin a deal.
I think we heard clearly from representatives from all sides of this matter. You heard very clearly in Mr. Butt's testimony of over 2 hours about the matters that took place, and Ms. Wilson-Raybould herself had 4 hours of testimony. Those people are part of the story that was broke.
That's right. That's what I want to hear from.
And we heard very clearly at committee from 10 witnesses over 13 hours and 5
Do
weeks.
they speak for themselves? I mean, wouldn't you like to hear whether they actually said those things?
I think it's clear that our job in the Justice Committee was to have conversations relating to the matter in Shawcross on remediation agreements and the Attorney General. We gave the former Attorney General 4 hours, including an uninterrupted 40-minute testimony at the beginning of her appearance there. The testimony went on for 4 hours, which is unprecedented, certainly in my experience on Parliament Hill. And we heard very clearly that what this matter amounted to was a disagreement about the nature of the conversations that take place before an Attorney General makes a decision. You've also heard clearly that the Prime Minister has asked former Attorney General Anne McClellan to take a look into this matter, and we also know that
Okay, and I'm just going to stop them there because they erupt into more questions and so on and so forth. But have you heard very clearly? Did you hear very clearly that this is a done deal? And very clearly, we've understood very clearly that this guy's tripping all over his talking points, and all he's trying to do is change the channel, and we're not ready. Canada's not ready yet because the questions aren't answered. The questions from this supposed feminist prime minister, this person who is beyond the pale, this person who is so much more moral than Stephen Harper, who's can't answer a question, who's unable to allow his former Attorney General to fully answer the question. She's still unable to speak because he hasn't waived privilege for the time period after she was Attorney General, from the time where she was still in cabinet as Veterans Affairs Minister, and then after she quit, she still is covered by parliamentary privilege. So all of that privilege has to be waived by Mr. Trudeau, and it hasn't been. So last week on the 19th, they said, time to change the channel, and that didn't work at all. It didn't work. It didn't work in that press conference. It didn't work 24 hours after that. It didn't work more than 10 days after that, right? We're still talking about SNC. And now CTV News is reporting opposition MPs call for Wilson-Raybould to testify again, citing new evidence. This was this morning, Okay. Opposition MPs are clamoring for the House Justice Committee to call Jody Wilson-Raybould to testify for a second time on the SNC Lavalin scandal. But a Liberal member of the committee said it's time to move on. In an interview with CTV Question Period host Evan Solomon, Conservative MP Pierre Poilievre said that in the newly released audio recording of a 17-minute long phone call between the former Attorney General and outgoing Privy Council clerk Michael Wernick, it makes it all the more necessary that Wilson-Raybould be invited to provide a second round of testimony. If Justin Trudeau has nothing to hide, why won't he let her complete her testimony, Poilievre said. And I scroll down a little bit. Poilievre said that the recording stands in stark contrast with Trudeau's assertions that Wilson-Raybould should have come forward if she felt any of the conversations on the SNC Lavalin file were inappropriate. Using words like a collision is clearly a veiled threat, which is exactly what she alleged at the committee, he said, and now we know she's telling the truth. He's called on Liberal MP James Philpott, who resigned from cabinet citing a lack of confidence in Trudeau's handling of the SNC Lavalin dispute, and all of the other people who have been linked to it to testify before the committee too. Green Party leader Elizabeth May says the recording shows that no one in the Prime Minister's office, quote, seemed to understand the concept of prosecutorial independence, adding that their behavior amounts to a very serious abuse of their office. She, too, thinks the Justice Committee has more to learn from Wilson-Raybould. The directive issued by Trudeau waiving attorney-client privilege and cabinet confidence that allows her to testify was too narrowly defined, she said. Quote, I think they made a huge mistake in deciding to shut down her ability to finish her testimony and also to know what happened between the moment she was made Minister of Veterans Affairs and the time she decided to step down, she told CTV Question Period. But Liberal MP Randy Boissonnault, who sits in the Justice Committee, disagreed, noting that Wilson-Raybould gave 4 hours of testimony before the committee last month, longer than anyone else, and was permitted to read a 38-minute opening statement. The written statement, copies of text messages, emails, and the audio recording she provided to the committee confirm what we already knew, Boissonnault said. Literally, it's time to get on with what Canadians expect us to do, which is to improve their lives and get on to the business of governing, he added. The Liberal-dominated Justice Committee shut down further hearings in the SNC Lavalin affair last week. So this is a long walk to get here, basically, but Randy Boissonnault is spitting exactly the same talking points 10, 12 days apart, whatever it is, from the 19th to the 30th now, so 12 days apart, or 11 days apart, doesn't matter. But why? Why the unending need to change the channel? And I mean, I get it, you want to move on, but if there are still questions and no answers, it's really interesting that Mr. Boissonnault is doubling down on time to move on, Canada. No, nothing to see here. You've got enough information to make up your mind. We don't need to hear anything from anybody at all about this anymore. That's so strange because people aren't ready to move on. The last story for this evening, and I'm sorry I haven't got to the 43 pages of text and email releases. They're all juicy and they're all basically what Ms. Wilson-Raybould has said, but I haven't had a chance to wrap my head around them. I've got lots and lots to do. It's busy. So I'm sorry. I will get to it as soon as I can. Hopefully, my fingers are crossed. But the last story today is Michael Wernick never briefed Trudeau that he spoke with Ms. Wilson-Raybould. This is Global News reporting. The conversation that was released by Ms. Wilson-Raybould, she recorded it. And, I mean, good thing that she did. But it's pretty unbelievable that Mr. Wernick didn't brief Trudeau. And because he references briefing Trudeau a couple of times during the audio, and I pointed it out in my last video as well. But here's Global News reporting. Michael Wernick never briefed Trudeau that he spoke with Wilson-Raybould, PMO. The Prime Minister's office, PMO, said the clerk of the Privy Council, PCO, never briefed Justin Trudeau on his talk with ex-Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould that was captured on a recording released on Friday. In a statement to Global News, the PMO said it was, quote, unaware of the full contents of this recording before today. And I saw this tweet and I thought it was kind of funny. It's Andrew McDougall and he's tweeting, I've now heard back from the PCO, the PMO claim that Wernick didn't brief the Prime Minister about his December 19th Lavalin call with Jody Wilson-Raybould, Puglass. Quote, the Privy Council office and the clerk have no comment to provide. So no comment, and please, let's change the channel. It's time for Canadians to get back to what Canadians expect us to do, which is to improve their lives and get to the business of governing. Actually, you know, thinking about it, the Justice Committee, what I expect you to do as a Canadian is to get to the bottom of a crooked Prime Minister. and a crooked Liberal Party and a crooked Justice Committee. You crook. Jeepers creepers. So, the Justice Committee is off in La La Land telling everybody, move on, please. And everybody in Canada is waiting to either be dragged out by Justin Trudeau's security or, well, maybe perhaps experience post-national states a little bit differently than Justin Trudeau. Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy your Saturday night. Have a good evening.